Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are on the 11th of Tevet 5776, one of those home games at the Holy Hilltop Apple, and today with God's help we're going to take off those gloves. And so you better be ready, put on a seatbelt. I don't know if we have insurance out there. Gonna go for a few curves. Few fastball, few curves. Okay, once again, our motto is that the class is for the sake of heaven, to please God, and to try to improve ourselves even a little bit with the words. This class, besides for being for the sake of heaven, to do God's will, it's also for the release of all the great Jews that are incarcerated right now. That being including that is my daughter last night, and was arrested at the entrance to Yerushalayim. So a demonstration going on there for the against the torture of the boys in the dungeon cellars of the Secret Service, alias the Shin Bet, and all the other good Jews. My son is coming on up to 2 years. Coming up this month is going to be 2 years that he's sitting. Okay, with that said, let's go. On this past Motzei Shabbat, this past Saturday night, after Shabbat was over, I headed down with my daughter and a few of her friends. We headed down to Jerusalem for the demonstration in front of the kippah wearer, skull cap wearer of the Secret Service, who lives in one of the neighborhoods in Yerushalayim. And there was a demonstration. The motto, the logo kind of last week or two has been, the slogan has been really that a Jew does not torture another Jew. Jew does not torture another Jew. Depending how your ears receive that message, you could take it a few ways. But in my eyes, the real deep meaning is that, of course, a Jew would never torture another Jew. So therefore, if you're dealing with torture, it must mean that we're not dealing with Jews.
Ding, 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 ding.
There we go. That's the real deep spiritual meaning of this. Not that these people are Jews and they're doing it and we're trying to give them the message. No. The message is the same. Just like people that threw Jews out of their homes 10 years ago in Gaza and in northern Shomron, etc. Okay, the slogan was, Jews do not expel Jews. That is true. A Jew would not expel another Jew from his house, from the land of Israel. So those people that are throwing out Jews from their houses can't be that those people are real Jews. So who are these people? I mean, they are amongst the Jews, and they do consider themselves to be Jews, but who are they? Who are these people? It's interesting, Gemara, there's an interesting in Talmud, in the tractate of Beitzah, which discusses the laws of a holiday, Yom Tov. It says the following: Amar Rav Natan, just go right into the English so we save time here. Rav Natan, the son of Abba, says the following: the wealthy Jews, not wealthy Jews, the wealthy people of Babylonia, they will be sent, when they leave this world, they will be sent to the dungeons of hell. Why is that? Why are wealthy people of Babylonia, why is the Talmud coming down on these people? Who are these people? Tell a story. There was, you might call him a new immigrant coming into Babylonian. As we know, in the time of the, after the destruction of the first temple, there were two large Jewish communities. One was in Babylonia, which continued even after the temple went up. The second temple went up. And there was also a large community in Egypt where they boasted about a synagogue that contained up to 10,000 people. They needed flags when you're supposed to say Amen, so they needed a flag so you know where you are, like kind of like the page. You know that song, like I got the what page in the synagogue blues? Yeah, that kind of blues. Anyway, so there was a new immigrant there and coming to Babylonia. His name was Shabtai, the son of Myrinius, and he made his way to Babylonia. And he came up to many people and he said, listen, I don't really have any funds. I'm new here. I'm a new immigrant here and I want to join the community, the Jewish community there. And he said, listen, maybe you could have me work and then slowly I'll pay you back the original loan that you gave me. If you find me a job, I'll be able to work and then I'll be able to slowly pay you back so you doesn't really come out of your pocket, kind of like tax exemption. So they said, no way, saying we're not going to do that. We don't know who you are. We don't trust you. You're going to pay us back. We're not going to give you this loan. Okay, so he said, okay, no loan, no loan. How about if I could just ask you for some food? I just got here and if you could have some food and some drink. And they said, no food, no drink. Wow, that's really nice. So the Talmud says that these people are not Jews. Who are they? They are the Erev Rav. In the time of when the Jews left Egypt, there were approximately 2 to 3 million Gentiles that converted via Moses. Moses did not discuss this before accepting them as converts. He did not discuss it with God. It turned out to be a real bad move. And in fact, until this very day, as it says in the Zohar Kadosh, the Holy Zohar, it says that the leaders of the Jewish people before coming the Messiah will be from the side of these multitudes, Erev Rav. Why is that? How do we know that these people in Babylonia are not Jews and they're from the Erev Rav? It says very simply. It says in the book of Deuteronomy, 13th chapter, it says, V'natan lecha rachamim v'rachamecha. I will give you, God will give us mercy, and we in turn will be mercy. Which means the Talmud says that a person within the Jewish community that has mercy on other people, other Jews, this is a sign that this is a known sign that he is a descendant of Abraham. He is from the Jewish people. But a person that does not have mercy on people, this is a sign that he is not from the descendants of Abraham, and he is from the multitudes of nations that converted. And throughout history, starting from the time when they were in the desert, most of our troubles, you could always find the incitement of the Erev Rav behind it. The Ben Ish Chai has an unbelievable, tremendous Torah on this Talmud, and he says there the following: if you do the numerical value of the word rachamim, which means mercy, it will come out to the same numerical value as retzach, which means murder. Which means, very simple, this is unbelievable Torah by the Ben Ish Chai, that if you do not have mercy on fellow Jews, you are one step away from murder. Which means you can easily bring yourself, come to a situation where, because of the fact that you are not from the Jewish people, you are from the Erev Rav, you're one step away from murder. Therefore, both of them have the same numerical value. Unbelievable. Those that are still sitting on your chairs, I'm jealous. you're able to sit down in the chair. Okay, so to go on to understand this, that of course a Jew does not torture another Jew, which means that these people that are doing the torture can't be that they are Jews, because we said that if a Jew does not have mercy on another Jew, this is a sign that he's not from the Jewish side, he's from the multitude, of the Erev Rav side. We have in the holy book called Kol HaTor, we have in two places, very interesting, the student of the Gra says the following, that we know that there is a war against the nation of Amalek for all the generations. For all the generations, there is this ongoing war between the Jewish people and the nation of Amalek. And the student of the Gaon of Vilna, the Vilna Gaon, says the following: there's a three-facet fight going on here with against the Amalek. Number one is a person has within them, a person has an evil inclination and bad characteristic traits. That's a war that has to be fought, which means we all came really down here to the world to fight and to correct and to perfect our traits. Every trait has its time and its place. There is no bad trait. To be angry is not a bad trait. Usually it is, but not always. And there is a place for anger. And there is a place for every single characteristic trait. It has its time and its place and its amount. How much? Okay, so that's number one. Number two is there is a general force of evil, which we'll call Satan, and that's who's fighting against the Jewish people as a whole. And that is the second type. It's more general. It's not just a private person, it's a general. And the third is not a spiritual entity. The first two are spiritual. The third is something that exists here in our world, in our terms, in a worldly term. This is the Amalek who's here in this world. And that is a combination of three groups. One is Esav, which is Rome, which is the Christian world. One is Yishmael, which is of course the Muslim world. And the third, lo and behold, the third part of Amalek is the Erev Rav. And he writes here that there's this ongoing battle. The Erev Rav will always try to say that, they will try to hide behind the banner that they are the ones to lead, and they are the real Jews. Like, for example, when in the time of the Second Temple, when Alexander came and met up with the Samaritans, so they claimed that they were the real Jews. How did they prove it? They said, listen, when all the Jews left Israel and went to Babylonia, they didn't exactly leave, they were thrown out and the temple was destroyed and they were murdered and sold into slavery, but whatever. So we stayed here in the land of Israel, so that's why we are the real Jews. We are the real Jews, yeah. So that's the, many times the Erev Rav will try to raise that flag that they are the true Jews. So that's on page 144. We also have in the book Kol HaTor another 180. Says the following, that as we know, there are two messiahs for the Jewish people. One is called the Messiah of Joseph, and the other one is Ben David. And each one has its own fight. The Messiah of Yosef will fight against Esav, and the Messiah of David fights against Ishmael. So one's going against the Christian world, one is fighting against the Muslim world, and how are they brought together? See, because really they are two separate entities. We have the Christian world and the Muslim world. They are totally different entities. How are they brought together? We see in our times many of them are being brought together. So what is that function? Who's that function that's bringing them together into this like a new world order kind of thing? And this is the Erev Rav, the multitudes of nations. That they, it says here, they could destroy Israel, the people of Israel, these Erev Rav, they could destroy the people of Israel and an entire world, God forbid. The main idea, the main goal of the Erev Rav is to bring together these two forces of Esav and Ishmael, and thus to separate between the two messiahs. And what our job is to do here, us down here, our job here is to destroy the power and influence of the Erev Rav, these multitudes of nations. The Erev Rav is our worst. We despise them more than anybody else. Listen to this. I mean, that's a pretty big saying over there. More than the nations of the world. They are our number one enemy. They are our number one enemy. Okay, which means that when they look at us, they hate us more. They hate us more than they do the nations of the world. That's how they look at it. Okay, that's the real explanation over here. The war against the Erev Rav is the most difficult war and most bitter, and we have to use all of our strengths, even our last ounce of strength, to fight this war. And any person that does not fight this war in a real sense becomes a collaborator with them, and it doesn't matter who they are. They might have a kippah or not have a kippah, beard, not beard, peyot, side curls, or whatever. And their major strength is in the gateways to Yerushalayim. Once again, the Erev Rav, their strength is at the entrance to Yerushalayim, believe it or not, which is interesting because the 2 or 3 demonstrations the last couple of days, they've been right there at the entrance to Yerushalayim. And we've seen this disgusting behavior by police, etc., using on peaceful demonstrators who are sitting down on a street, and instead of just like picking them up, putting cuffs on them and that will end that, no, they're coming in with their clubs and beating people up, and they're pepper spraying people. In fact, they got about 4 or 5 reporters they clobbered about 4 or 5 reporters who were on the scene also. So this is very interesting. This is at the entrance to Yerushalayim, and this, according to the students of the Gra, this is where they have their power, which of course is also interesting because if you've ever been in the entrance to Yerushalayim, it's also where the so-called Knesset sits, right at the entrance, right over there. Very interesting. Okay. Lately what's been happening is, we spoke about this for many years, the fact that we're going to have to take a side. There's no more hiding behind someone's skirt or behind, trying to get out of it. You're going to have to take sides. So this whole event that's been happening in the last 3-4 weeks, these arrests and this torture of young Jewish boys, 16, 17, 18 years old, in the dungeons of the Secret Service. In fact, that evening on Saturday night when I was in Jerusalem, they interviewed a former a prisoner of Zion from Russia, His name is Rabbi Yosef Mendelevich, and they said to Rabbi Mendelevich, "You're of course familiar with all these tactics, being that you were in with the KGB." And then, Rabbi Mendelevich, if I was there, I would have been floored. But he looks at the guy straight and he says, "No, I'm not familiar with these tactics at all." I said, "What do you mean? You were in the KGB." He says, "Right, but they never used torture tactics." Okay, I'm glad you're still sitting there. Anybody that's really sitting there, that was his response. You could check it out. Go on to Arutz Sheva, the 7th station in Israel. Check out the interview with him. That's what he says. That they did not, that it was not torture. So, I guess we're in our own league by ourselves. But anyways, what's happening here is that there is a war going on. It has nothing to do with this fire that took place in a place called Duma, or these people that were killed. It has nothing to do with it. There is a war here. It's a political war that's going on. It's not a new war. It's a war that's been going on since the State of Israel. In the beginning of the State of Israel, if you were in the wrong party, then they would not give you a card that would enable you to work, etc. If you had the wrong idea. So if you were religious, so they would send you, to anti-religious kibbutzim, where their religion was destroyed. If we go back into the history of the State of Israel, we will see this all the time. It depends what your ideology is. And there's a war 10 years ago. It wasn't about we're looking for peace. They understood that there was never going to be peace. You had to be some kind of idiot with a diploma to think that you're going to give the Arabs all this land in Gaza and in northern Shomron and you're going to have peace. You have to be an idiot. So what was it about? It was about that they are afraid generally they're afraid of the religious community, because that they know that there's only a matter of time before the religious will be a majority here and their time is up and they're out. But more specifically than religious, with the national religious group, what they call Dati, the Dati Leumi people, the Chardal people, Haredi Leumi, the people that are also nationalistic, but they're also from the Haredi side. So this group has been targeted by the government and all the officials, and there's a war going on, and that's why they closed down. That's why they closed down Gush Katif and the northern Shomron. That was the real reason behind it, not because they were thinking that there was going to be any kind of peace.
Can I digress for a quick second, Rabbi?
Yeah.
Rabbi, I just want to tell you, Gush Katif, and you can Wikipedia it, they were up to about $80 or $90 million a year in agricultural products. These were mostly flowers going into, outside of Israel, being exported, as well as bug-free vegetables. But I also want to say one other thing. It's interesting today how a general strike was averted today, but literally the entire nation was going to be frozen today of this agency you're talking about, that the gangsters of 48 who led this labor movement today were going to strike because of, you can see their power is starting to weaken.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay, so this is not new. Rabbi Kahana was warned by the Secret Service many, many years ago, and he walked out of the office, and some days later he was jumped in Yerushalayim. He was jumped, and the people that jumped him tried to put him into a sack, believe it or not. When you put like potatoes, or so they tried to kill Rabbi Kahana. Right after the Secret Service warned him, and he said he would continue with his activities. Okay, I myself, for a month, I I was in their custody of the Secret Service for a month. We could have a whole class here on what they do, but I don't need to say what they do. You could just read your papers in the last couple of days. You'll see a lot of their tactics, and I could just second those. Okay, so let's look at some. We're going to have two little quotes here to understand what we're dealing with here. We're having, again, here is a political war, a political enemy, and as they're used to in the Holy Land, unholy people, these Erev Rav, lowlifes, so that's what it's all about. It's really a war between Torah values, and Western values. It's a war between Torah and also political power. So, okay, two quotes. Number one, the Secret Service, which usually do not comment, here, because of all this bad press that they're getting lately, thank God, here's what they say, I quote, this group that we've arrested, or these people that are, many of them are administrative detention, these people, this group displays an extremist, anti-Zionist ideology. Okay? These people are anti-Zionist. Okay? Anti-Zionist. First of all, it's very interesting that the originally Jewish groups that wanted to come back to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel, they were called Ohavei Tzion. They were called Chovevei Tzion, lovers of, adorers of. Notice how the modern Zionist movement took out those words. It's just called Zionism. Not Chovevei and not Ohavei. There's no more groups like that. First of all, they took that word out, and it wasn't by accident. Okay? So here, they're claiming that these people are against the Zionist ideology and bear part of the responsibility for the current unrest in Israel. I mean, like, come on, like, you know, sometimes in Hollywood they have like applause or laugh, like, okay, let's laugh. They're responsible, like these people are responsible for the Torah teaches us that it is law that Ishmael hates the children of Isaac, that the Muslims hate the children of Isaac. They need a cause. It's them. It's these 10 boys that they've caused this unrest. They bear responsibility for it. Yeah, in the 1920s and 30s, there were no hilltop youth. There were no settlements. There was no state of Israel. It's interesting why they murdered over 500 Jews during a 25-year period. Very interesting. What was the motive? Number two, I'm not going to say his name in a holy place like this synagogue, but he's the leader of the so-called education department in Israel. Okay, he wears this very small kippah on his head. Here's what he said. There are a few dozen people whose goal is to shake and uproot the foundations of the state. They do not recognize Israel as a legitimate state. They are dangerous people. Once again, read into the words. Read into the words. Anybody, there was a case 2 days ago. There was a demonstration right outside the house of a member of the so-called Jewish House Party, and Professor Hillel Weiss was outside demonstrating with the youth, and this member of Knesset happens to be a pretty decent person. My experience with him happens to be a pretty decent person. He said, "Listen, there's nothing we could do." Why not? He says because there's a law that with Arabs, the law was intended to be used against Arabs who attack Jews, etc., and Israel. The law was really made for them. So we can't come and say, listen, you have a law for the Arabs and these are Jews, there should be a different law. We can't say that. We have to have one law for everyone. So the reason why the Secret Service is allowed to beat the hell out of these guys and to torture them is because we're using the same law against Arab enemies of Jews. We're using it against lovers of Israel. Because what can we do? So if you have a Torah ideology which makes separation, in fact, when we say the Amidah prayer, the most important thing is separation. Ata chonen l'adam da'at. Is because if there is no separation, there is no holiness. That's why they're connected. The blessing before that is Ata kadosh, you are holy, and then to differentiate. When we are different, we are holy. When we are the same, okay, when we're just a democracy, and not a good one at that, as if we're a democracy, we're not really a democracy at all.
Police state.
A police state, right? But whatever they want to, say, they want to claim that they're a democracy, yuck. But here is really what's going on is if you stand for Torah principles, then you are uprooting the foundations of the state, because we do not recognize a private person, we do not recognize a judicial, judge, we do not recognize a government. If a government or any private person is going to issue a law which goes against the Torah, we take the Torah law. And your law is like, in the words of Rav Tzvi Kook, ke'afra de'ara. We say before Passover, it's like the dust of the world. That's exactly what the issue here is. There's a group of people that they're afraid of, and they're political enemies, and they've decided, okay, not from today, they've decided for many years that they will make a war, because they're not willing to have us really take over here. Even though it might come to that in a democratic way, they're going to make sure that it's not going to happen. And therefore, that's what it's really all about over here. To understand this, to show you this, listen to this, right? There was this case, it was 5-6 months ago, in a place called Duma. Somebody threw a Molotov cocktail, started a fire, and most people say that it was not Jews that did it, it was the Arabs. There's a whole, you could look on it, there's a lot of this on the subject, a lot on the internet on the subject. There's a lot of internal fighting going around this village called Duma. A lot of bad stuff going on over there. But anyways, okay, let's say that they were Jews. Okay, the Jews, after thinking about this, after thousands and thousands, every week there's hundreds of attacks, and some Jew went out and can't take it anymore. He sees friends, families, Jews being injured, Jews being traumatized. And he can't take it anymore, and he goes out. And did what he did. Okay, he's the enemy of the state. Very interesting. Let's look at another hero of the state. Who's that? There's a guy. His name is Meir Har-Zion. Meir Har-Zion. Welcome, Meir Har-Zion. Meir Har-Zion grew up on a kibbutz. He's one of our boys. He's one of the establishment kind of people. And the following thing happened in 1955, on somewhere between the 4th and 5th of March. On 23rd, Today. Well, like home run time. Today. Yeah, today. 1954. Shoshana Har-Zion, who's a sister of Meir Har-Zion, and a friend of hers, Oded Wagmister, they were both 18. They went to hike in the Judean desert. The last people that saw her were people that were from the place called, a famous resort today, called Ein Gedi. They knew that these two girls were armed. These two girls were hiking in the Judean desert, but they were armed. These two girls were armed. And then, on that day, 23rd of December, 54, both of them were murdered. Their bodies were found 6 weeks after in near a famous river near Ein Gedi. It's called Nachal Arugot. This was approximately 8 kilometers from the border between Jordan and Israel. In that area, there was a certain tribe of Bedouins. They were called Arashida. They lived in that area. This tribe of Bedouins lived in that area, the closest to the border, 7 or 8 kilometers. There's a lot of other Bedouins, but these were the closest. And in February of 1955, which is 2 months later, Israeli Bedouins went across the border to try to bring back the bodies, but they were on the other side, on the Jordan side. They opened up fire, and they had to come back to the Israeli side. Eventually, they made an agreement through the UN, and they received the bodies in return. Okay, in response to this murder, Brother Meir, her brother, between the 4th and 5th of March 1955, and a friend of his named Yoram Nahari, they were both from this like very, very famous battalion. It's called 101. It's a paratrooper. It's like famous. It's kind of like very clout, high class. You know, if you belong to it, you're one of the boys. So they were all from and also a person named Zev Slotsky. Both of them, 3 of them, were all from the same kibbutz called Ein Harod. All of them from the same kibbutz. And a 4th person named Amiram Hirschfeld. He's from a kibbutz called Degania on the way into Tveria. They crossed over to the border, and about 9 kilometers away, they found a tribe of Bedouins called the Azazma and Jahalin Bedouins. So these are, I guess, a different group. They're not the closest. They're a little bit further away, 9 kilometers. And as revenge, they killed 5 Bedouins. One was shot at. One was shot at when he tried to escape, and 4 were stabbed. 4 were stabbed. One of them was let loose. A old person was let loose by these 4 Jews in order to explain. Today, sometimes people leave a message on the wall, but I guess they did it differently then. They let this guy live, and they said, we want you to go back to your village and explain them why these members of your tribe here are no longer living, because of what this is revenge for what was done to our 2 women, my sister and another girl. Anyways, to make a long story short, there was pressure by the chief of staff then. His name was Moshe Dayan. You might have heard the name, and also the head of defense. His name might have also heard the name, David Ben Gurion. There was pressure that nothing should be done to them, and sure enough, they were never brought to trial because of lack of evidence. Right after that, after 20 days where they were deciding what to do with these people, these Jews, what they were deciding to do with them, afterwards the 4 of them were let go, no charges, no trial, and Mr. Meir Hartzion returned to his army battalion. Okay. He's a hero of the state of Israel. He's a hero of the state of Israel. Yeah. We have today the enemies of the state of Israel. Danger, we talked about what these people are extremist, anti-Zionist ideology, causing unrest in Israel. These people are uprooting the foundations of the state. They do not recognize Israel. These are dangerous people. Very interesting. If you go in Israel, any city, it's very interesting also. There's always a street that's called Dov Gruner Street, or there's always a street that's called Raziel, or there's a community, there's a village called Raziel. Well, just look them up, see what they did in history as they placed bombs or open up fire on buses, Arab buses, randomly, and look, they are heroes. They have streets that are named after them. They have villages that are named after them. But these boys, these are the enemies of the state of Israel. Enemies. Let's go on. In the 1940s, there was a project that was called the hunting season, or the season for short. This was by the official Haganah. This was the Haganah, who was the official defense of before Israel. We're talking about 4 years before the establishment of Israel, but they were considered to be the leadership of Israel. Anyways, they persecuted the soldiers and members of the Irgun, trying to end its activities. So let's see how nothing has changed all these years. It's the same old song. Okay. As the result of the Irgun's proclamation of a revolt against British rule, military operations were launched against various government targets. The official leadership of the Yishuv of Israel, the heads of the Jewish agency, were opposed to this activity and demanded that it cease. They argued that the national institutions had been democratically elected and that consequently the Irgun and Lehi should accept their authority. Yeah, they're the leaders. They were voted in democratically. Okay. On the question of national authority, Moshe Sneh said the following: to expand your activities requires control of the people. Listen to the words. Control of the people. And the property of the public. You have to control it. And it is we who control the public. You know, we have them on the little, where they're puppets of ours. People, the masses are blanks. Oilam is a goilam, it rhymes. Goes on. We do not intend to renounce that control because it is we who have received a mandate from the Jewish people. Yeah. If you continue your activities, a clash will result. Wow, it's the headlines of today. Eliyahu Galumb was even blunter. We demand that you cease immediately your activities against the British. We do not want a civil war, but we are ready for it as well. They're ready for it. We will be forced to adopt our own measures to prevent your activities. The police, in our opinion, will not be able to liquidate you. But if the Yishuv rebels, it will come to that. It is clear that we are not speaking of your physical liquidation, but the developments could lead to that as well. They could lead to your destruction. It is a question of propaganda and information. They control the media, what you're listening to, what you hear.
It's an info war.
Info war, yeah. Where's Alex Jones when you need him? Okay. Menachem Begin, the head of the Irgun, replied the following: we have no party or administrative interests. We pray for the day when we can proclaim the end of the Irgun's task and disperse it. And the moment that you go out to war, telling the official organizations of Israel, we will all rally under a united leadership. But as long as you have not done this, we will conduct our battle. The turning point in the struggle against the Jewish underground was the assassination of Lord Moyne in Cairo. Eliyahu Hakim and Eliyahu Ben Suri were dispatched to Cairo, and on November 6, 1944, they assassinated him. He was responsible for in Cairo, he was responsible for the white paper policy. He turned back. Because of him, thousands of Jews were killed. On January 10, 1944, both Eliyahus were charged with murder, and eventually they were hung. The assassination of Lord Moyne created shockwaves in Palestine and throughout the world. Even before the identity of the assassins became known. Hey, this is today's headlines. Even before we know who did it. Even before we know who did it, the Jewish Agency executive convened and issued a fierce condemnation of the act. At the same meeting, it decided a series of measures against terrorist organization. Wow, this is today. This is not 1944. You got to be pulling my leg. Once the hunting season, had been approved by the Jewish Agency executive, the matter was submitted to the Histadrut Council. Those are the people that wanted to strike today. Mm-hmm. The body which more than any other framework determined the content of the organized yishuv. They were really the power, the Histadrut. Listen what they published. Here's their official announcement of the Histadrut. Da-da-da-da, please take off your hats. Kolot balev. The perpetrators of terror, who call themselves the Irgun and fighters for the freedom of Israel, are traitors. What was that? What was that? What was the traitors? Dangerous people. Yeah, we talked about it today. Extreme anti-king, anti-Zionist traitors. They must be removed from our classrooms, banished from our workshops. Their propaganda, whether written or spoken, must not be permitted. No refuge must be given to these malefactors in the homes of parents, relatives, and acquaintances. The despoilers must be isolated and abandoned until they are spewed out of the ranks of the Yishuv, until their terror ceases and their organizations are eradicated.
And we will destroy Nov.
As regards to collaborating with British police, the announcement went out to declare: the Jewish Agency proposes herewith that all persons who are acquainted with any of the terrorists should immediately inform the police by word of mouth, in writing, or by telephone, and observe the injunction. Listen to this one. Folks, put on a seatbelt for this. They're bringing a verse from the Torah. And observe the verse: and thou shalt root out the evil from thy midst. It's the evil themselves. It's the evil looking in the mirror. They are the evils. They are the cruel. They are the torturers. Thou shalt root out the evil from thy midst. Fathers who have sons in these organizations should in the same fashion inform the police, call on your kids, and observe thereby the commandment. If a man has a stubborn and rebellious son, he must take him out to the elders and say to him, our son is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice, and all the men of the city shall stone him. Yeah, this is not Mick Jagger here. This is not the Rolling Stones. This is like, just kill him.
Or Dylan.
Yeah. Two members of the Jewish agency, these guys are heroes, Rabbi Yehuda Fishman Maimon and Yitzchak Greenbaum, continued to oppose any form of collaboration with the British police. And when the decision was taken to collaborate, Greenbaum announced his resignation. Okay. The entire Haganah command was preoccupied with the season, and information on the Irgun and Lehi was amassed by the Haganah Intelligence Service. It's called SHI. It's very interesting because they still have an organization that's called Machoz Shai in Judea and Samaria. They have this headquarters. It's called Machoz Shai. Wow, baby. And that's where they take you, and they put you into the dungeons. The intelligence service had some 250 Palmach fighters, the elite Haganah unit at its disposal, who were brought down to town and assigned to the season operation. They shadowed suspects and kidnapped Irgun fighters on the basis of lists they received from Shai. In addition, the Palmach guarded the Jewish agency leaders for fear that the Irgun or Lehi might react by perpetrating counter-kidnappings. The Jewish agency in Jerusalem set up a department for special assignments which maintained close contact with the British intelligence. They have today a special unit of the Secret Service for Jews. Sounds familiar? No, it's nothing new here in this country. It was this department which handed over to the British a list of names of persons suspected of being members of the Irgun. Close to 1,000 people were handed over to the British, 1,000 Jews. Most of them were taken to the Latrun detention camp, and several hundreds were deported to detention camps in Africa. In addition, dozens of suspects were kidnapped and detained in prison cells built especially for this purpose on kibbutzim. Right? Remember Meir Hartzion from the kibbutz? Yeah. They were interrogated by members of the Haganah, intelligence servants, and suffered occasionally torture. Nothing new here. A letter from the High Commissioner in Jerusalem to the Colonial Secretary in London, dated March 1st, 1945, reveals that the Jewish agency exploited its collaboration with the British intelligence in order to hand over active members of the revisionist party who were not even members of the Irgun, and thereby to rid itself of political. Not only are they handing over Irgun members, but also a party that has nothing to do with the Irgun, but it's politically they are not aligned together. They are their adversaries. So they also turned over those people's names to the British. In all, public records C0733 on 457. In all, the Jewish agency has supplied so far details of 830 suspects, of whom 337 have been located and detained so far. Of these, 241 are being held under emergency regulations. Well, hey, that sounds like today. No, these emergency regulations, yeah. The remainder have been released either under surveillance or unconditionally. Several useful arrests have also been made in the Irgun Center in Tel Aviv. Unfortunately, the Jewish agency list of the so-called terrorists, listen to this one, folks, continues to include numerous people who have no connections whatsoever to terror, but politically speaking, are considered to be undesirables to the Jewish agency. This adds to the difficulties the police have to separate between the sheep and the goats. The most serious kidnapping incident was the case of Yaakov Tavin, who was in charge of the Irgun's intelligence service and on the Haganah most wanted list. For 3 months, Tavin succeeded in evading the Haganah, who were shadowing him, but at the end of February 1945, he finally fell into their hands. The kidnapping was described by Haaretz newspaper on March 2nd, 1945. Passerbys in Dizengoff and Yirmiyahu, listen to this one, were greatly struck on Tuesday, February 27, 1945, by the kidnapping of a young man on the street. The kidnapping occurred at 11 a.m. and was witnessed by a large number of people. A large taxi halted at the corner of Dizengoff and Yirmiyahu, and several men emerged, one of them dressed in a police uniform. They approached the young man, who was standing on the pavement holding a package, shouting, "Thief!" They attacked him and began to hit him. The crowd thought that he was in fact a thief, and several of them joined the attackers and helped them to push the young man into the taxi. He struggled with them and shouted in Yiddish and in Hebrew, "Jews, help me! Why do you let them hit a Jew?" He was thrown into a car which swiftly drove away. Tavin's kidnappers blindfolded him, tied his hands, sounds familiar, on the floor of the car. He was driven to the kibbutz Givat HaShlosha, and from there was taken to kibbutz Ein Harod of, Meir Har Zion, the hero, where he was imprisoned in a barn which had been converted into a detention room. Tavin was held for 6 months and underwent numerous interrogations accompanied by severe torture. Protesters were joined by civil organizations and by Tel Aviv municipality, together with municipalities and social councils all over the country. Sounds familiar? Demonstrations popping up all over. Public pressure proved effective, and the season gradually lapsed. Although the season caused the Irgun tremendous harm, it did not liquidate it. Many of the fighters were arrested, but new recruits took the place of the veterans. And in the spring of 1945, the organization began to recover. In the time of prophet of Elijah, you had to cut out the two-sided. You have to decide whose side are you on. Are you on the Torah side? Are you in the Torah law? Are you in the ways that 5,776? Are we in the ways, are we going down the ways of the secular, of the so-called democracy, of a country of the citizens of its states? That time has been brewing, but here, now it's coming straight. It's coming fast forward. It's a war here. It has nothing to do with what happened in this Arab village to this family, whether it was done or not done. Nothing to do with it. There's a war here. And we all have to make it clear which side that we are on. And I'll tell you that each day, 3 times a day, I pray that the bodies of government in Israel, from head to toe, because all these people, it doesn't matter if it's the president, if it's the prime minister, if it's defense minister, if it's politicians. Have you heard too much crying from the religious, the Haredi community? It's very interesting. I don't know if there's any connection, but they received recently 83 million shekel for their education system. I don't know if there's any connection. I'm sure there's not, between them keeping quiet. Have you heard from the chief rabbis of Israel? It's from the top to the bottom. And let me tell you, I personally pray 3 times a day that we should see their downfall. all these organizations, all these offices,
Amen.
we should see their downfall. We should see we should see the Sanhedrin. We should see the King of Israel. We should see the Torah being the law of the state. Bezrat Hashem. I pray that we will see their demise. These organizations, they should close their doors. Close their doors and allow the Torah true Judaism, the Torah true